Welcome to Connecting the Dots, the official Securitas podcast. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Connecting the Dots. We're here today in our studio in Stockholm. I'm Marina, Amancio.
And I'm Carin Andersson, and with us today we have Anders. Anders, please introduce yourself. Who are you?
I'm Gustavsson, working at Securitas since 2015, where I started to help Securitas to provide services or security services, packaging them in a way that we combine technology and at that time video services.
Cool. And what are you doing today?
Today I'm working with our global clients and cross-border clients to help them to transform and improve their security by a combination of technology and traditional guarding services.
Okay, maybe that has something to do with transformation?
Transformation is extremely important in this case, I can tell you. And when we talk about transformation in our case, we see how we can help the clients implement a security solution from the current state to a future state where we incorporate that, both the technology and the people.
Right, but why is it important to actually make that decision to transform?
Because the world is changing and we need to adapt to that, and the clients need to adapt to that. Today we have different type of threats, and the threats are changing all the time. We have dynamic threats and we need to adapt to that. Transforming a static security solution to something more dynamic requires a transformation. And the transformation is then all about changing the procedures, the processes, the way we work, etc.
But transformation and change can sometimes be really hard.
It's cumbersome, I can tell you, yes.
We
all know that.
Yeah. Do you have any tips on how to cope or how to make it more smooth?
Yeah, when we talk about transformation in the security domain, we always start to understand what are the risks. What are the type of things we need to protect for the client? How can we mitigate those risks? So it's really important to understand and also have a talk with the client on what is on their agenda. What are the most important, and how does this connect to their business case? Is it theft? If it's business continuity that we need to ensure that they will do. So that is the first thing. Second thing is to look into how we are working, a traditional operational analysis. Who is doing what? When are they doing that? When do we have the visitors? When is the trucks coming? When are the visitors coming into the site? We need to understand that. And when we have that data at hand, we can actually start to do what we call a solution design, which is actually not a technical design. It's actually design how we combine our 6 protective services, including on-site, mobile and remote guarding, combining that with data, digitalization, fire and safety, and more.
So it's if we name what you just said, so always start with identifying the risk, perform an operational analysis, and conduct a solution design. Those will be the 3 steps.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have the blueprint on how your organization or security solution for that specific organization should look like. And then you can actually validate with the client, and you can start then to implement the change as such.
Okay.
But I mean, transformation and change, it feels like we're on an ongoing transformation journey all the time in technology, in our private lives. It's always something new, right, that you need to adapt to, do differently, catch up. Is that how you see the industry as well?
Yes. The only fact that we know is that the change will never stop. And we need to adhere to that. Maybe what I would like to add as well in this discussion, we need to combine the personnel services with the technology. Both are equally important. We need the technology to improve our detection possibility, identification possibilities, but we also need the personnel to actually respond to something. So the combination is very important. And maybe I can give you an example.
Yeah.
I will talk about when we create the optimal security solution. We combine the guards and the personnel. And if we have done that and we look into a specific situation where we have a receptionist, can we replace that with a camera? Maybe in some cases, but in most cases not. because the receptionist is also doing hospitality services, safety services, evacuation services. So we need to have that in mind. We need to understand the risk and the mitigations and actually what people are doing, what the processes are. On the other hand, a receptionist or a gate a guard standing at the gate, we can replace with the technology where we move the person to the remote services. And we can actually use technology to remotely open that gate if we only have a few visits or trucks arriving during night.
So it's about knowing when you actually need to transform too.
Definitely.
You don't have to transform everything.
Going back to your risks and the operational analysis, and then how much you want to invest as well, of course. What is important for you?
But in your view, has the transformation journeys and the change journeys, had they increased lately? Or has it always been like an ongoing transformation journey in the industry?
I think there has always been some type of transformation or change, but it has actually accelerated. COVID has been one driver for this, of course, because we have seen that when we close down sites, how should we protect those sites? Can we use other type of guarding services, mobile, arriving on the spot when there's something happening, using a monitoring center or a SOC as we call it. So I think it has been accelerated, but also the technologies have evolved. So we have
making
better ways, making it possible. We have better ways of making an analysis of someone is trespassing or finding an intruder, and we get better quality. So technology is evolving, and we can then introduce more change or more transformation based on that. So yes, as you say, it's a continuous process.
Right. I mean, I wanted to go back to the technology and people conversation because we actually had that discussion in the last episode too of the podcast, that this is like tale as old as time, people getting scared that technology will replace them. But that's not the case, right?
No, on the contrary. We really see that people developed their own skills as well. We have several cases where the guard takes part in the technology implementation as well. Also adding value for the client, checking whether the camera is working, understanding security, operations and procedures, understanding the business of the client, which is really important. So we all gain from that in that sense.
So a lot of research and dialogue, I guess, to keep this going without so many bumps on the road.
Definitely. Right? How is the transition from traditional views into digital transformation? To rethink a process that has been happening for many years into something new. That must be so super hard to actually to think about and to explore and just not.
Yeah, yes and no, I should say, because we think in terms of traditional change management.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Again, set the targets for what you want to achieve and work in accordance to those in smaller or larger step, where you actually, whether you do a transformation of any type of solution, you do the same when it comes to a security solution. As I said in the beginning, understand where you want to go and implement that stepwise. And don't forget the people. Explain, and again giving you a case when we introduce some security solutions on an industrial site, or could it be a boutique or a shop, we train the people, because how is the person part of the whole security solution? It's not the technology on the left side, it's not the persons on the right side, it's a combination, and both of them are equally important in the transformation and need to understand their role.
Right.
That's so cool.
But coming back to our industry, and we're talking about security here, do you see any trends in the security market right now related to this?
Yeah, you see, of course, as I said before, the COVID situation have transformed the thoughts of many. Risk has changed, technologies have changed, and we need to adhere to that. So I think combination of the technology and the remote services have gained in interest. Even more important is that we also see that companies traditionally, as they have done in other areas, start to focus much more on their core business. Is security part of the core business? Yes, of course, because you need to understand your risks and mitigation. But should you do it yourself? Or should you find a trustworthy partner? who can help you meet that targets. Outsourcing we sometimes use in other areas. We talk about helping, being a trustworthy partner on the basis of the client's risks. We implement and mitigate those risks together with the client and take a full responsibility for that based on not hourly rates, but rather KPIs, SLAs, and now I talked about some acronyms. We are result-based solution of security. Right. We offer result-based solutions.
Great. I mean, this is a great cue talking about our industry to go for a break, and then we can dive in a little bit more with what Securitas is doing related to transformation. Do we have anything happening when it comes to that?
There's a lot of things happening.
Great.
I'm eager to tell more about that.
So I'll see you guys on the next half of our podcast.
Great.
Cool. You're listening to Connecting the Dots.
This is episode number 10 of Connecting the Dots. And with that, we conclude this season. We want to thank all the amazing guests who joined us and the relevant conversations we had on the mic. But we're not saying goodbye. A new season of Connecting the Dots is coming up, and we are so excited to share it with you. Stay tuned.
So we're back into the second part of the Connecting the Dots. And we're here with Gustavsson and Marina Amancio, and I'm Carin.
Yes. And we are kicking off going for a deep dive in what Securitas is doing related to transformation. Now we already talked about everything transformation generally, but we want to know, Anders, why did we go from traditional guarding to solutions?
I think it was a combination of internal needs and understanding of where the clients, but also a market demand.
Okay.
Organizations see that they would like to capitalize on new technology advances, but also, as we currently have, is the lack of resources, the shortage of resources in the world. How can we actually capitalize on that using technology, combining those into something that makes sense for the client and make an added value for the client?
And when you mention shortage, you're talking hardware?
No, I'm actually talking about personnel. Okay. We see today recent, and in some countries historically, we have seen this has been a greater demand because the wages and the salaries and the cost of employees, and we can see how this trend has been from the Nordic countries into Europe, and we are actually doing business also in Asia, where we and other countries maybe normally not thinking as on a solution initially, but we see that it's also taking on.
That's cool.
So this started as an evolution of we were doing already market demands, internal demands, and we put that together and started. And some of you might remember that we talked about combi solutions or combinations of protective services. And from that we have actually put this into a strategy where we are fully executing today.
Okay.
And we have learned from the market, we have learned from our own competencies, and we are refining our protective services and how to combine them to meet the demands of the market and the clients.
So it was always something that we had in our strategy as a company to like keep moving and adapting and like being there for our clients, but also as you said, the whole world changing and us needing to adapt and stay relevant to our clients, right?
I think that's a good way to express it. But we have had elements, and looking back on my 8 years at Securitas, we have taken one step every year in talking about solutions until our current strategy that it should be a major part of our business.
That is so interesting, but we need some benefits. Why is this important to do? What do we get from it, from actually going through this really tough process, so much analysis, changing everything that we're doing?
Well, if we start with the external factor, I mean, it should provide some benefit for our clients and provide a better value, a better offering, and letting the clients understand what we are providing to them. And I think that is the most important driver for this transformation, these changes. But of course, if you take the Securitas hat on, one of the very important things is we can create a more stickiness. And stickiness with the client means that we and they rely on all, not only for a single individual delivery, but actually for us taking the responsibility for their threats and mitigating their threats. And I think that is really important. And of course, we also want to increase our margins and having a better margin, allowing us to further develop our solutions. And I think that is also expected by the clients, that we have the possibility to invest in them. So margins are also really important aspects. And finally, maybe what I almost was forgetting, we can utilize all of our protective services. Sometimes we are a little bit narrow in the way that we present our offerings. And if we train our people and ourselves in talking about all the 6, we can actually broaden our offering to our clients. I think that's really important as well.
Well, why do you think we have this narrow, like sometimes? Is from the past, from how it was done before? So adaptation maybe?
Yeah, and this is part of the transformation of the business. I mean, what did we offer in the beginning? It was resources. I always give this type of storyline. How did we protect the castle in the past? We have guards. We have guards for the detection. We have guards for delaying. We have the guards for defending. Now we can use technology for some of those, but we can also adapt and we can collect data. We can actually handle the fire and safety. And we can take that whole process further and actually be an even better supplier for our clients. So that I think is extremely important. And I mean, I know myself, if I don't have the whole palette of services, it's very easy to focus on what you can do best.
Right, seeing the big picture.
Yeah, exactly. You need to see the big picture. And then doesn't mean that you need to be expert of all the protective services, because we will have subject matter experts helping you. Implementing the guard mobilization, the key handling on the mobile guards, how we do a remote service, and how we do data collection, and you capitalize on the big data.
But there must have been some challenges along the way.
Right.
Oh,
Transforming.
Of course. We need to transform ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we have you coming from either of the 6 protective services. Of course, you have more competence in that, and it's easier to provide and sell that and present that for a client. So it's a change of all of us.
Right.
That is really important.
Yeah, and internally as a person to go together with a company to open up.
And you need to go outside your own comfort zone, talking about something that you maybe are not the subject matter expert.
Right.
Yeah.
Getting out there. And then to conclude this amazing dive in Securitas and transformation, our topic today, what are the next steps?
Oh, I think there's a lot of steps. We have just started a journey, I should say. Okay. So I think the next step is to train our own people to be able to naturally talk about what solution is, how we present it, how we package it, how we measure it. So I think the journey has started. And then on different market, on different clients, we have to start where the state is and take next step. And that is a transformation of us.
In itself,
In itself, of ourselves and our client, and also on the market.
Amazing. That's,
That's interesting.
So interesting. And it's like this was it was like going through all the transformation processes ourselves here in the podcast, every step, and talking about such an important topic for us as a company too. Thank you, Anders, for this discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're not over yet.
No,
this is not over.
We have a surprise for you.
Oh, I get nervous.
It's the connection game. Do you know what it is?
No.
Do you want to explain, Carin?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the connection game is that we say one word. Actually, we're going to say 3 words. We will say them one at a time. And whatever pops up into your head, into your mind, you will share with us.
It can be a memory, it can be a person, it can be one word if you want, but not limited to that. So you can tell a story if you want.
Okay, I try to avoid that.
Okay. And the first word we have is
future.
Inspiring.
Please elaborate.
Oh, I think the future, despite that the world looks like today, there are so many good things we can work on, so many transformations and changes we can implement. And taking the Securitas hat on me, I mean, how do we take all these steps with all the people we have? We are in a unique situation. So I'm really inspired by being part of the journey. So a future for me is far away. I'm really inspired by the next steps and taking those steps. So that's for me is the future.
All about possibilities.
Yeah.
Great. The next word is water.
Oh, since I'm an old swimmer.
Okay.
And I
didn't
just,
know.
Mark Spitz, then I always say. But
you were a swimmer.
I was a swimmer in my youth, yes.
Okay.
Not as good as Mark Spitz, but he was my idol at that time.
Great.
And,
A lot of time in the water.
yeah. So and water is also important for me because I really like sailing and spending my vacations on water. So it means a lot.
Yeah, deep in the heart.
And what if I say relaxation?
Then I maybe go back to the water and say sailing again, because the best thing is on a Friday afternoon after all the transformations and the change management, I go to the boat and sit there with my wife and doing nothing. And then we sail.
In the harbor?
First in the harbor and then we go sailing and then you really relax, because then you take away all the noise and focus on steering the boat where we're heading.
I think it's really funny because you're working with transformation, and I think the ocean is like the thing that transforms itself so fast out of nowhere.
Yeah.
With a boat, you have to adapt to that too. So it's interesting that you have this parallel with your personal life and work too. Amazing.
Really interesting.
Right?
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Anders, for this conversation. This was such a good episode. I always say that, but really, I felt like
this time you mean it.
I felt like we had a really meaningful dialogue here. I felt like the episode was really good. I hope everyone that is listening thought the same. And thank you so much for coming.
Nice being here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.